Gaslighting. This is a form of psychological manipulation where a person seeks to make someone else doubt their own perceptions, memories, or sanity. It often involves denying facts, manipulating events, or outright lying to make the victim question their reality. Guilt tripping. This involves making someone feel guilty about their actions or decisions in order to manipulate them into doing what the manipulator wants. It often involves using emotional manipulation to make the person feel responsible for someone else's unhappiness or problems. Flattery. This involves excessive or insincere praise or compliments, often used to manipulate someone into doing what the flatterer wants. It can be used to boost someone's ego or make them feel special, but it's often done with an ulterior motive. Selective truth. This involves telling only part of the truth or distorting the truth in order to manipulate someone's perception of a situation. It can be used to deceive or manipulate someone into making decisions or taking actions they wouldn't otherwise make if they knew the whole truth. Isolation. This involves cutting someone off from their friends, family, or support system in order to control them or make them more dependent on the manipulator. It can involve controlling who the person interacts with, where they go, or what they do. Playing victim. This involves portraying oneself as the victim in order to gain sympathy, attention, or support from others. It can be used to manipulate others into feeling sorry for them or doing what they want out of a sense of guilt or obligation. Fear-mongering. This involves spreading fear or panic in order to manipulate or control others. It can involve exaggerating or fabricating threats or dangers in order to make someone feel afraid or insecure. Emotional blackmail. This involves using threats, manipulation, or coercion to control someone's behavior by playing on their emotions, vulnerabilities, or insecurities. It can involve threats of punishment or withdrawal of love or affection if the person doesn't comply with the manipulator's demands. Scapegoating. This involves blaming someone else for problems, mistakes, or failures in order to avoid taking responsibility oneself. It can involve unfairly singling out someone for criticism or punishment in order to deflect attention away from one's own actions or shortcomings. Love bombing. This involves showering someone with excessive affection, attention, or praise in order to quickly build a deep emotional connection or manipulate them into doing what the love bomber wants. It can involve overwhelming the person with gestures of love or affection in order to gain their trust and loyalty. Bait and switch. This involves promising one thing, but delivering something else in order to deceive or manipulate someone. It can involve luring someone in with a desirable offer or promise, only to change the terms or conditions once the person is committed or invested. Divide and conquer. This tactic involves pitting individuals or groups against each other in order to maintain control or power. It often involves creating conflict or discord between people who might otherwise work together, making it easier for the manipulator to maintain influence. Peer pressure. This involves using social influence or the desire to fit in to manipulate someone into doing something they might not otherwise do. It can involve direct pressure from peers or the fear of social rejection or ridicule if one doesn't comply with the group's expectations. The silent treatment. This involves refusing to communicate or interact with someone as a form of punishment or manipulation. It can be used to control someone's behavior or emotions by making them feel ignored, excluded, or unimportant. False promises. This involves making promises or commitments that the manipulator has no intention of keeping. It can be used to manipulate someone into doing what the manipulator wants in the short term with no intention of following through in the long term. Projection. This involves attributing one's own thoughts, feelings, or motivations to someone else in order to avoid taking responsibility for them. It can be used to manipulate or control someone by making them feel guilty or responsible for the manipulator's actions or emotions. Mirroring. This involves mimicking or imitating someone else's behavior, emotions, or beliefs in order to gain their trust or approval. It can be used to create a sense of connection or rapport with someone, making it easier to manipulate or influence them. Overwhelm. This involves bombarding someone with information, demands, or emotions in order to confuse or manipulate them. It can be used to create a sense of urgency or pressure, making it harder for the person to think clearly or resist the manipulator's influence. Negging. This involves giving someone a backhanded compliment or making a negative or critical comment disguised as a compliment in order to undermine their confidence or self-esteem. It can be used to manipulate or control someone by making them feel insecure or unworthy. Shifting the blame. This involves deflecting responsibility for one's own actions or mistakes onto someone else in order to avoid consequences or accountability. It can involve making excuses, blaming external factors, or accusing others of wrongdoing in order to avoid taking responsibility oneself. Foot in the door. This involves making a small request or demand initially, then following it up with a larger request once the person has complied with the first one. It can be used to gradually escalate the person's commitment or compliance, making it harder for them to refuse the larger request. Door in the face. This involves making a large, unreasonable request or demand initially, then following it up with a smaller, more reasonable request once the person has refused the first one. It can be used to make the second request seem more appealing or acceptable in comparison to the first one. Emotional manipulation. This involves using emotions to control or influence someone's behavior. It can include tactics such as guilt tripping, gaslighting, or using flattery to exploit someone's emotions for the manipulator's benefit. Charisma. Charisma refers to a compelling charm or attractiveness that can inspire devotion or admiration in others. Manipulators often use charisma to gain trust, influence, or control over others by captivating them with their personality or presence. Misdirection. Misdirection involves distracting someone's attention away from what is actually happening or what the manipulator is doing. It can be used to conceal ulterior motives, hide evidence, or divert someone's focus in order to manipulate them more easily. Overcoming objections. This involves addressing or neutralizing someone's concerns or objections in order to persuade them to comply with the manipulator's wishes. It can involve offering reassurances, providing explanations, or using other tactics to minimize resistance. Playing on insecurities. Manipulators often exploit people's insecurities by using them to gain control or influence. This can involve highlighting someone's fears, doubts, or vulnerabilities in order to make them more susceptible to manipulation or coercion. Creating dependency. Manipulators may deliberately foster a sense of dependency in others by making them reliant on the manipulator for support, validation, or approval. This can make it harder for the person to break free from the manipulator's influence. Creating false urgency. This involves fabricating or exaggerating a sense of urgency or importance in order to pressure someone into making a decision or taking action quickly. It can be used to manipulate someone into acting against their own interests or better judgment. Power dynamics. Power dynamics refer to the distribution and exercise of power within a relationship or group. Manipulators often exploit power imbalances to assert control or influence over others, using their position or authority to manipulate or coerce those with less power. By understanding these manipulative tactics, you can better protect yourself and others from falling victim to them. Stay empowered and stay safe. Until next time.